Hello everyone and welcome back to Tiny House and Off-Grid Resources. I had a birthday recently and I'm the same age as old people now. That's just blown me away. And it made me think about things that I remember when I was younger. And one of those things was 21st keys. Large keys that would be ceremonially presented to 20-year-olds on their 21st birthday. Big party and a key that hangs on the wall. Quite often it was an awful mirror with scalloped edges and gilded writing that said, "Congratulations on reaching 21." 20 or 30 years ago, that was a big thing. One of the other things that there was a lot of 20 or 30 years ago was glory boxes. When I was a young teenager, I did not understand what it was when people were talking about a girl's glory box. I thought it was some vaguely sexual reference that they were masking. And then I discovered that the glory box is a chest. It's a large box that a girl might keep at the foot of her bed, and as she gets older and older, her friends and her parents and family would donate things and give little presents that can all go in the glory box for later on. They were things like blankets and cake mixes and useful little, quite often expensive things that a girl is going to need if she's going to be a good wife. We were full of 60s sexism back then, and the 70s weren't a lot better. Since then, I've forgotten the terminology for these things, but it turns out that I've had glory boxes of my own for a very long time, but I call them my glory buckets. And it's time for me to go through them. So come and have a look and see what I've got in my various glory buckets. These are my two most used ones. One's an old saucepan. The other is just a random plastic container. And they are full of screws, nuts, bolts and washers mainly. There's a few other random things in there. These get used regularly, so there's no point in going through these. I know what's in them, but I just would like to share how good keeping useful stuff can be. Most of these have come from me stripping out microwaves or washing machines or old stoves and keeping the switches and the rheostats and the transformers and the wiring and all that useful stuff. That's in other boxes, but the screws and the nuts and bolts all get put into these. The next one I'd like to show you is my valve bucket. Because I make stoves from recycled propane tanks, I end up with dozens and dozens of these propane valves. There's a bit of plastic on them, there's a bit of stainless steel on them, a bit of aluminium, but they're mostly brass. Dirty brass, as they call it, that's where it's mixed in with other things. The price is something like $400 for 100 kilos. So I've got about $40 worth here, or $50 worth. There's about 10 or 12 kgs worth of brass. That doesn't need sorting. This will turn into beer money for Christmas time. But what we're going to have a rummage through today is some ingredients that I took out of old toolboxes so that I could use them for other purposes. And this is my really randomness. So we'll have a look and see if there's anything here that's useful. The rest of it can go to metal recycling. Now something like a turnbuckle, we'll keep that. I'm going to have to go through these bolts. Because I'm working on Landrovers, keeping old Imperial nuts and bolts is a good idea, but I don't think I need a random fork or a lock with no key, for example. Key steel, very useful. Keep that. I've got several of those, I think. Pieces of hacksaw, pieces of specialist blade, not a lot of good to me. That is very worth keeping, if you know what that is. That is the grease cap off the wheel bearing of a trailer. Sometimes they get lost, always good to have spares hanging around. Teaspoons, yeah, we'll keep hose clamps. A scutcheon plate from a door, we don't need that. A random piece of chain with a turnbuckle on it, yeah, that's useful. That is off a spray gun for spraying paint. It's what holds the cup up onto the lid. I will put that with my other spray gun random parts. Short length of chain again. Light fittings. Old spotlight, very old spotlight. It's cute, but it's of no value to me because LED stuff is so cheap nowadays. So we'll make that one the rubbish bin. And we'll start putting stuff in there. Bit of copper. You never know when you might need a little bit of copper for something, so that's worth keeping. More of these key steels. These aren't actually key steels. What these are is the square shaft that goes through the middle of a door lock. I'll hang on to a few because they can get used for other things. Random little things like this, I don't even know what that is, but the chances of using it again for something are very slim. I'm off grid, so I don't use 240 volt light bulbs. Everything I use is 12 volt, so we don't need that. A knife, I suppose I could use that for a scraper or spooning stuff out. Random little bits of metal, they can go. Somebody else's little hooky project off something. Sharp knife. I might just keep that for carving foam for when I do motorcycle seat repairs. Oh, cute little chrome on brass latch. If I can find the other side to that, that'll be worth hanging on to. A lawnmower blade with very little use. If there's a pair, if there's another one to go with it, I might hang on to it. If not, that can go as well. Chunk of heavy metal, oh, a rusty piece of metal, that can go. I do very little with timber, so there's not much point in keeping coach screws. That's interesting, I wonder what that was. Some old kind of plumbing fitting. It's brass. It's, yep, it's a BSP. It's before we had the plastic click-clack hose fittings. We used to have to screw things to our taps. That's one of them. A gorgeous brass coat hanger. I hope I've got another one of those in the other bucket. I'll hang on to that. Okay, well that didn't take long. And what I've saved out of that lot is just the small pile here, plus the nuts and bolts that I've put in a box over there. I'll put those with the rest later. This one, oh, it's water on the bottom, so things have gone rusty. Mostly old tools. That is useful to me. That is for honing with memory paper. I will keep that too. Most of these woodworking type bracelets are of no use to me. Nobody seems to use them anymore. They all use high-speed drills because these have the tapered square drive, and it's only used in the old school brace and bit, which is a very old tool nowadays. These really belong in a museum. I'm not going to chase around and find somebody who wants them. What I might just do is put them in a box and save them for decorative work. I can heat these up and bend them and make them interesting shapes, maybe use the handles and other things. I might just leave on those. More of these old door locks and things. I won't be able to go in there. What do the old spoons? That looks like a homemade soldering iron, pretty neat thing. But it's a large lump of copper on the end of it. I can use it for something else. I'll put that one. More drill bits. Oh, once upon a time that was extending drill bit. A useful tool to have, but so crossed up, it's not worth saving. Now down here is the shelving unit where I keep everything for making my gorgeous little bespoke wood stoves. On the bottom shelf there's a couple of older ones that have been pulled out for repairs or replacement. Here's a pile of the cooking plates for in the top. Boxes of small components, hinges and air inlet pieces, damper units, These are going to become heat shields that go around the stoves. And on top here, we've got a rusty old bottle that's going to be turned into a stove. One that I'm part way through of a new design. It's got a larger cooking area. It's going to have a hole in here with a damper so that we can adjust the performance of the stove to save wood and control the heat. And it's going to have a large door with a glass window on the front. I'll be finishing that later this week. This is the end of one of my flat pack fire pits. They come in a canvas bag and live under the seat of your four-wheel drive or in the boot of your car, and 4 pieces slot together to form a handy fire pit that you can keep warm around or even cook on. Made out of 4mm plate. It'll last for years if it's looked after properly. And we're down to the flotsam and jetsam now. I don't think I'll bother keeping any of this apart from possibly the washers. Washers are always useful. I'll put these in vinegar to take the rust off them. 20 minutes to an hour in vinegar will clean those up a treat. If anybody tells you about dipping things in Coca-Cola to get rust off them, yeah, it does work, but it takes 24 hours or more because Coca-Cola has a very small amount of citric acid in it. Not enough to really do the job. If you want to get rust off nuts and bolts, buy citric acid. That will do it. Or, if you're just doing it once in a while, a little bit of vinegar from the kitchen will get the job done. Right, there's my washers. The nuts can stay as well. 10mm bolt, always useful for me. 8mm bolt, that's useful. 8mm bolt, 8mm, 8mm. The rest of them are just old imperial measurement nastiness. They can go straight to the rubbish. Tempting. I'll hang on to that. Little tie back hook for something. That's called a cabin hook for tying back small doors. Right. That's good. I've just reduced 3 of my glory buckets into 1.5. That's good. So I've halved some of my rubbish. It's a good job for the morning. I might go and have a cup of tea and some toast. Thanks for watching. See you later.